Girl, if you did not exist, I wouldn't know how wonderful it can be loved and to feel someone's always by my side. Girl, if you did not exist, then I'd create you in my dreams, like an elf through the still of the night. You'd fly and celebrate a ride to make this dream come true. Well, if you did not exist, I wouldn't know that love can mend all the pain deep inside that we share. Life would be so hard to bear. Well, if you did not exist, I couldn't sing this song for you. There is love burning deep in my heart. Life won't tear this love apart. I'll never ever let you go. Inside of a man, life would be an empty head. Well, if you did not exist, I couldn't sing this song for you. There is love burning deep in my heart. Life won't tear this love apart. I'll never ever let you go. Girl, if you did not exist, I wouldn't know how wonderful it can be loved and to feel someone's always by my side. Girl, if you did not exist, then I'd create you in my dreams, like an elf through the still of the night. You'd fly and celebrate a ride to make this dream come true. Well, if you did not exist, I wouldn't know that love can mend all the pain deep inside that we share. Life would be so hard to bear. sing this song for you. There is love burning deep in my heart. Life won't tear this love apart. I'll never ever let you go. Inside of a man, life would be an empty head. Well, if you did not exist, I couldn't sing this song for you. There is love burning deep in my heart. Life won't tear this love apart. I'll never ever let you go. Girl, if you did not exist, I wouldn't know how wonderful it can be to be loved and to feel someone's always by my side. Girl, if you did not exist, then I'd create you in my dreams. Like an elf through the still of the night, you'd fly and celebrate a ride to make this dream come true. Well, if you did not exist, I wouldn't know that love can mend all the pain deep inside that we share. Life would be so hard to bear. Well, if you did not exist, I couldn't sing this song for you. There is love